And good morning. Welcome, Senator. You are the leader in the polls this morning, and I have to say you were very busy yesterday. The Associated Press led its story of your appearance in Columbus, Ohio, by saying, quote, Rick Santorum questioned Barack Obama's Christian values. That was after you lashed out at the president's proposal on energy, of all things, when you said this.
It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about your quality of life. It's not about your jobs. It's about some phony ideal, some phony theology. Oh, not a theology based on the Bible, different theology.
So, Senator, I got to ask you, what in the world were you talking about, sir?
Well, I was talking about the radical environmentalists. That's why I was talking about energy. This idea that that man is here to serve the earth, as opposed to husband its resources and be good stewards of the earth. And I think that is a phony ideal. I don't believe that that's what we're here to do. That man is here to use the resources and use them wisely, to care for the earth, to be a steward of the earth. But we're not here to serve the earth. The earth is not the objective. Man is the objective, and I think a lot of radical environmentalists have it upside down.
Well, how does that translate into some sort of theology that the president's
it's a
theology
worldview.
is not based on the Bible? I mean, that suggests that he's not a Christian.
No, I wasn't suggesting the president's not a Christian. I accept the fact that the president's a Christian. I just said that when you have a worldview that elevates the earth above man and says that we can't take those resources because we're going to harm the earth by things that frankly are just not scientifically proven, like, for example, the politicization of the whole global warming debate. I mean, this is just all an attempt to to centralize power and to give more power to the government. And this is not questioning the president's beliefs in Christianity. I'm talking about the belief that man should be in charge of the earth and should have dominion over it and should be good stewards of it.
I don't want to just spend the whole program on this, but was your use of the word theology, perhaps you could have had a better word than that? I mean, don't you know that could, or do you wonder that might lead some people to suggest that you were questioning the president's faith?
Well, no, because I've repeatedly said I don't question the president's faith. I've repeatedly said that I believe the president's a Christian. He says he's a Christian, but I am talking about his worldview or his the way he approaches problems in this country, and I think they're different than how most people do in America.
At another stop in Columbus, you took on the president on prenatal care for expectant mothers. Here's what you said in this passage.
One of the things that you don't know about Obamacare and one of the mandates is they require free prenatal testing in every insurance policy in America. Why? Because it saves money in health care. Why? Because free prenatal testing ends up in more abortions and therefore less care that has to be done, because we cull the ranks of the disabled in our society.
Senator, I have to ask you to give some explanation of that. You sound like you're saying that the purpose of prenatal care is to cause people to have abortions, to get more abortions in this country. I think there are any number of testing. I think any number of people would say that's not the purpose at all.
Well, that's Bob, that's simply not true. The bottom line is that a lot of prenatal tests are done to identify deformities in utero, and the customary procedure is to encourage abortions. And in fact, prenatal testing, that particularly amniocentesis, I'm not talking about general prenatal care. You said prenatal care. I didn't say prenatal care shouldn't be covered. We're talking about specifically prenatal testing, and specifically amniocentesis, which is a procedure that actually creates a risk of having a miscarriage when you have it, and is done for the purposes of identifying maladies of a child in the womb. In which in many cases, and in fact most cases, physicians recommend, particularly if there's a problem, recommend abortion. We know, Bob, that 90% of Down syndrome children in America are aborted. So to suggest where does that come from, I have a child who has trisomy 18. almost 100% of trisomy 18 children are encouraged to be aborted. So I know what I'm talking about here.
Well, I know you know what you're talking about. I know that well. I know you also had another child that was stillborn. But
and I was,
didn't,
no, he was not
didn't you
stillborn.
want to know about the, just a minute,
Bob,
just hold on just a minute.
My child was not stillborn. My child was born alive.
All right.
And he lived 2 hours.
All right.
By the way, prenatal testing was, we had a sonogram done there, and they detected a problem. And yes, the doctor said, you know, you should consider an abortion. This is typical, Bob. This is what goes on in medical rooms around the country. And yes, prenatal testing, amniocentesis, does in fact result more often than not in this country in abortion. That is a fact.
I stand corrected on the stillborn. You're absolutely right. I simply misspoke. But, Senator, do you not want any kind of prenatal testing? I mean, would we just turn our back on science, that this is something that expectant mothers should not go through, that it's best not to know about these things ahead of time? I mean, is that what you're saying here?
No, I'm not saying, look, people have the right to do it, but to have the government force people to provide it free just has, to me, is a bit loaded. There are all sorts of prenatal testing which should be provided free. I have no problem with that if the insurance companies want to. I'm not for any of these things to be forced. Let me step back and say I don't believe any of these procedures, anything in insurance should be forced. So let me just start from there.
Okay.
But the idea of having, for example, sonograms and other types of prenatal care, absolutely. If I think that is a wise thing to do, and if I was an employer, I would certainly encourage that. But not all prenatal testing. Amniocentesis basically are used for the purposes of identifying children who are disabled, and most cases end up as a result with abortions.
You're not saying, let me just ask you, that you're not saying that because of this that the president looks down on disabled people, are you? You're not accusing him of that.
Well, the president supported partial birth abortion, and partial birth abortion is a procedure used almost exclusively to kill children late in pregnancy when they've been found out to be disabled. The president voted for a provision that said that children born alive as a result of abortions late in pregnancy who are otherwise viable should be allowed to be killed by the doctor. I think the president has a very bad record on the issue of abortion and children who are disabled, who are in the womb, and I think this simply is a continuation of that idea.
Well, since you brought all this up yesterday, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a clear understanding of exactly what you meant.
Yep.
and how you feel about this. Another thing that raised a few eyebrows yesterday, Senator, you questioned the value of all things of the public school system. Now, here's what you said about that.
But the idea that the federal government should be running schools, frankly, much less that the state government should be running schools, is anachronistic. It goes back to the time of industrialization of America, when people came off the farms where they did homeschool or have the little neighborhood school, and into these big factories. So we built equal factories called public schools.
So there you are, Senator. I mean, are you saying that we shouldn't have public schools now? I mean, I thought public schools were the foundation of American democracy.
Yeah, I think I'm saying that local communities and parents should be the ones who are in control of public education, certainly not the federal government. And as I said before, as I said in that clip, I think the state governments have not done a particularly good job in public education. I think public education should be a dynamic process that's locally run, that works with parents to provide the optimal opportunity for each child in America to get the education that they need, not what the federal government or the state government says that you should have. That's why I refer to it as, going back to the industrialization of America, when we had a system in this country with industrialization where, you had one car produced, and you maybe got it in two colors. And we haven't changed public education significantly since then. Every single car on a Detroit line is custom ordered. Why? Because it's designed to meet the needs of the customer. The education system, federally run, state run, is not designed to meet the needs of the customer. It's designed for the purposes of the school, not the children and the parents who are the customers of that system, and I think we need a dramatic change in that system.
You know, Senator, if everybody could afford to homeschool their children, that would be one thing.
I'm not talking about homeschooling. I'm talking about public education, Bob.
Well, you know, there are little communities where the people couldn't afford to have a public school, and that's why you have states involved in schools. And
well, there's one thing for states to help fund public education. It's another thing to dictate and micromanage and create a one-size-fits-all education system in states and certainly in the federal government, what President Obama is trying to do. What we need is to have the same kind of change and dynamic change in the public school system as we've seen in the economy of this country. Customized. Everybody gets what they need. I have 7 children. I can tell you each one of them learn differently. All of them could excel in different settings, and that goes with every American child. And we can do better than a system that 1 in 3 children drop out of school. If that is the hallmark, Bob, that you talk about as a great society, when 1 of 3 children drop out of school, and a lot of the folks who don't drop out of school still can't read at grade level, that to me is a failure, and defending that failure is not something I'm planning on doing, which is what the president does.
Well, what would you do to fix it, Senator?
Well, as I said before, first I'd get the federal government out. I would, to the extent possible, with respect to mandates and designing curriculum and the like, I would get the state government out. I think that the parent should be in charge, working with the local school district to try to design an educational environment for each child that optimizes their potential. And whether it's in a public school or a private school or a Christian school or whatever kind of setting that is best that the people at the local level can determine, I think that's where we need to go in education. It's got to be a much more dynamic process. We are failing American children. We're failing our society with having these high rates of dropouts and people graduating without the skills or frankly without the value structure that's necessary to be able to go out and work hard and to be able to produce in our society and to build strong communities. And I think we need some really dramatic changes, and we're not getting that.
Senator, I want to thank you very much for being with us this morning. I'd hoped to ask you about some questions about the economy, but frankly, you made so much news yesterday out there on the campaign trail, I felt compelled to ask you about that. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm happy to make news about important issues of the day that obviously don't get talked about a lot.
All right. Well, thank you so much.